During this time, I was having a lot of past life memory come up, past life trauma. A lot of trauma from my own family lineage would come up and out through me. It was very interesting. And a lot of it would come through channeled writing. I would look at this notebook that I had written in, and if I didn't know what it was, I would think the person was schizophrenic writing in it.
Oh, I've got some of those.
Yeah, the handwriting all looks so different from one another, but it was all coming through me. And it was this total release of trauma that was stored in my DNA.
Welcome to Beyond the Veil, stories of twin flames, divine union, and mystical encounters. Sit back, relax, and listen to your story today. My next guest is going to remain anonymous because, as you'll see from her story, that she's actually in a soulmate relationship. So to protect all parties, we're going to keep her name and what she does for a living anonymous. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to share.
I'm so excited as well. And yeah, go ahead and tell your story.
Okay. So like you've said, this isn't just a story about twin flames. This is also my story of awakening and now being in a soulmate relationship and just how that looks and how that's all feels so different. So my journey started about 10 years ago at this point. I was probably 19 at the time. I was sitting at a bar with my friends, just having a normal night out, and in walks this guy. He was exactly my type, and the second he walked in the door, I knew I needed to meet him. I asked my friend, "Who is that?" And she knew him and wound up introducing the two of us. And from there, we kind of spoke a few times and wound up running into each other again on campus. And our school was not small. It was a school of 40,000 people, so that didn't happen very often. He wound up coming to a party at my apartment towards the end of the school year, and I just remember feeling so magnetized to him. We couldn't stop talking the entire night, and yeah, there was just this draw to one another. Towards the end of the night, he wound up pushing me against the wall and kissing me. And it was so sexy. It's one of the most intense kisses of my life. And that sparked this several month-long summer romance, basically. And we were in a school that had very pervasive hookup culture. So it didn't feel like it was just a fling on some level, but not on, this more spiritual level that I can now recognize. Again, the intensity was something I had never experienced, have never experienced to this day. And it felt like almost we couldn't acknowledge it. I know we both felt it. There was just this draw on a spiritual level to one another. But I think just with the programming and trauma that each of us had, it felt like too much to acknowledge and too much to talk about, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it stayed very light and physical. And then towards the end of the summer, I was leaving for study abroad. I was going away for 4 months, and it was really crushing to leave one another. I felt like, what are we going to do? How is this going to work? And I know he was scared to kind of lose me and be apart from me during that time. So even within the time that we were together, there was still this dynamic of separation and coming together that was still seen throughout the relationship. So I left for 4 months, and I really took that time to focus on myself. And just have fun and enjoy being in another country. But I was hearing from friends, this guy really likes you, he misses you, all these things. Obviously, that was so exciting to me. I couldn't wait to get home to him at the same time as enjoying myself. So I come back home, and our reunion was so amazing. We couldn't wait to just be near one another. Again, that draw, it was so intense, and it really activated my heart in a way that no other relationship had at that point. So we're reunited, and we wind up spending this night together. I still can remember it. I don't know if you know the song, or I'm sure you do, but Beyonce's Drunk in Love had literally just come out. And so we had listened to that song together after spending the night, like literally making love all night. And I feel like throughout this whole journey, just song spoke to me. And that song was so pervasive because that's what it was. I was totally drunk in love, in this love that I've never experienced before. And I think with the twin, the lovemaking is really different. After not having been together for so long and then coming back together, it felt like we were melting into one another, if that makes sense. Like there was this total union of our bodies, of our souls, and it felt like our bodies were communicating in a way that we couldn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Felt like there was, I was experiencing telepathy for the first time. Like I could feel what he was thinking, and it was so incredible. And I feel like we were really able to like open our hearts in that situation as well. I don't know if it was because we were separated for so long or what, but it just felt very heart-opening in a way that we weren't able to access before our first separation. So again, this kind of goes on for a few months of us being together, but not ever like, how do I say? We weren't exclusive, I guess. Like neither of us were seeing anybody else. But again, I think the programming and the trauma that each of us had wouldn't make us commit to one another, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
it was just too much. It was too much. We were 20 years old. I don't think either of us knew how to handle what that was. And so it became really toxic seeming. To the outside, I think it looked like, why are you with this guy who won't commit to you? You know? But I knew what was happening between the two of us behind closed doors. I mean, in a different way. Like I knew that there was so much love there. Like I didn't know we were twin flames, but I knew there was so much love there and so much passion and intensity that I don't think other people could understand who weren't in that experience. Again, this kind of goes on for a few months, and at some point we reached this like make it or break it moment where like, what are we doing? Are we going to do this or are we not? I decided to just keep letting him do what he's been doing, and I was just going to be okay with that, I guess, until one night we went out, and I think this night was the start of his kind of dark night of the soul. But we went to a party that I honestly dragged him to. He didn't want to go out that night. And it was a really crowded house party with a bunch of people we didn't know. And I turn away for 1 second. I'm talking to somebody, and I turn back to look at him, and he's suddenly on the floor. His guy friends had gotten into a fight with some strangers. And while he wasn't involved with the fight, he was near it and wound up getting punched in the face, and his jaw broke in 3 places. So obviously it was so scary. We went to the hospital, and he had to have his jaw wired shut for 8 weeks, which mind you was like the end of his college career as well, the last couple of months. So I mean, talk about like a rock bottom, right? He was losing a ton of weight because he couldn't eat. He had his jaw wired shut. Like that's even so metaphorical, right? Like we both had these throat chakra blocks, and he literally had his mouth wired shut. So he was feeling really, really vulnerable and down. Also, I feel like noting people's astrology is really helpful. He's an Aquarius, and those Aquarius are notorious for not settling down or commitment, I think. Right? So we basically were not together, and I wanted that commitment. Like, hey, if I'm going to be by your side while you're going through this, like, I want to be your girlfriend. And he wanted me to show up as his girlfriend, and then he would make me his girlfriend. So it was this, like, again, really toxic kind of dynamic and so painful. And I didn't know what to do with that. So I acted out. I started kind of seeing other people. I was like, I'm not, committed. So I am allowed to do this. And this is when he starts telling me that he's having dreams that I'm like dating other people.
Wow.
Yeah. He was always talking about like dreams with me in them. And during this time, he literally knew what I was doing. So crazy. The dreams between twins are so crazy.
So crazy.
Yeah. So Yeah, so he finds out that I'm dating other people and ends the relationship with me. And I just felt so misunderstood because it felt like my heart was right there and you could have had it if you wanted it, you know? It was awful. So that was like we broke up, if you can even call it that, whatever that was. We
Yeah.
separated again. And since that point, this person has kind of danced in and out of my life.
What did you feel like when he ended it? Because it looks to me like your childhood wounds were crashing against each other.
That's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when he broke up, what did you experience emotionally?
Devastation. Yeah. Total
Yeah.
devastation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think abandonment, which absolutely has been a core wound of mine. And it was so difficult because no one understood the relationship to begin with, you know? So you really couldn't
Mm-hmm.
talk about it, how devastating it is to lose that when everyone's like, good riddance, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it was really, really painful. And after that, we kind of reconnected a month later once his jaw was unwired and, or I don't know, once his jaw wiring was removed, we kind of tried again and we were at a bar together and I looked around and he was just gone. He had left. And I went to his house to see, you know, what happened. And he was like, I just can't do this. And it was this total shutting down. I think that, again, something about that physical altercation activated something really deep within him. And I believe perpetuated him on his dark night of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And little did I know that's what was also happening with me as well. I had no idea. But looking back on that time of my life, I can see that relationship and that situation was this absolute beginning of my own spiritual awakening and my own dark night of the soul. So yeah, so that was the kind of the story of our relationship. It was about a year and a half together. And then since that time, this person, like I said, has danced in and out of my life. It's funny when you look at the twin and how, you know, we know they're these like mirror images of one another that you always say.
Mm-hmm.
We, you know, have really similar life or upbringings, I guess you would say. But even like to the point where our best friends are now married to one another. So my best girlfriend from high school just married his best guy friend from high school.
Wow.
And like we introduced them. So it's just like this continual thread throughout my life.
That's gotta be hard. A little
It's
bit.
really, it's like a cosmic joke, honestly.
Yeah, I would be a little devastated in a way.
I'm just like, you're always going to be in my life as long as these people are, and it's so funny. Yeah. So I just see these like this equal and opposite way that we respond to things like you've talked about. And even, you know, with like the people we have in our lives, it's very interesting. So after we had that final separation, each of us started dating other people. I got into a relationship about 6 months later, I would say. And I dated that person for 2 years. And I went to college in a city. So everybody who I went to college with kind of just stuck around that city after college. And so we were all kind of in the same circles still. Yeah, post graduation, I was in this relationship and I was going to graduate school, and the relationship I was in was not going great. Yeah, we were just kind of like complacent in it until one night I went out with my best girlfriend from college and my twin was there with his best friend as well. And I hadn't seen him in those 2 years since that final night when, you know, things really hit the fan between him and I. But we had this really magical night together and it felt like we were able to communicate all that we weren't able to during the time we were together. We both voiced like how we had felt about one another and how we had felt in the relationship. And we were able to talk about kind of like what was running through each of our minds that was preventing us from having that intimate connection, if that makes sense. You know, like I was able to say to him, like, I never felt good enough for you. And he was able to totally talk me through all of that and say, what are you talking about? Like, I always thought you were so beautiful. And like, I, you know, was totally in love with you.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really crazy. So I left that night and I broke up with my boyfriend. It was very clear that wasn't working. And I thought, wow, I could really have this opportunity to be with somebody or this person who I've loved for all these years and really have this chance to do it right with him. So, yeah, broke up with my boyfriend and was basically just kind of waiting on my twin to make this move to be together finally. Kimber, you and I have talked about this, but there was this moment where it felt like he had the opportunity to choose love or fear, and he chose fear. So I didn't hear from him. That was it. It was total, again, activation of my wounding and this feeling of abandonment, and also just like feeling, what the fuck? Well, what just happened, and yeah, again, so painful. So that,
Did he give any reason, or did he just never call?
never, nothing. Yeah, I think from what I heard from our mutual friend, my best friend, I think it was just too much for him. I think it was too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I've experienced even with mine, it's like, I mean, he once said, I love you so much and it hurts so much. And if you got to know the real me, I'm afraid you wouldn't like me. So I'd rather not. And I was like, what do you mean you'd rather not? He's like, I'd rather not.
Yeah.
And just for the feminine, that makes no sense. Like,
No.
I'm like, why wouldn't you just lean into that love or that vulnerability? And for him, it was just so much better to walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I can't make any sense of it other than he got scared. And I think like the word love coming up was really scary to him, if that makes sense. Like for whatever reason, that level of intimacy just really spooked this person. When I know him now, it still spooks him.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
in his current relationships, that idea of commitment and love and real intimacy. And
Do you see
also,
his childhood wounds? Do you know his childhood wounds, that this is a mirror to that?
I don't know them so deeply. No, I don't know. But I know his frequency, and I know that
Yeah.
this is a huge part of it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it
But
spurred within you abandonment and
yes,
probably unworthiness.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But it also put me on my path. 100%.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So what'd you do then?
I wound up moving to California. I moved cross country, obviously, as one does. And I got really into energy healing and plant medicines. Well, just to back up, when I first started seeing this person, the beginning of my spiritual awakening was happening. The summer where we were first together, I was kind of coming online, I would say.
Yeah.
I think like 2011, 2012 was a huge time of awakening on the planet, and that was definitely what was happening for me. I was doing a lot of yoga and getting into sacred geometry and just like smoking a lot of weed and being like, whoa, there's this whole other world I don't know. So when I moved to California, that was really accelerated. Throughout this whole time also, like while being on the twin journey, I also was having my own awakening again. And a lot of that was coming into the body and almost awakening to like German new medicine. Again, I
So
didn't
good.
have that language for it, of course, but like I knew that when something felt activated within me, I would have this link with my skin. So I was really struggling with acne all throughout this time, and it really exacerbated when I went to California. So for about 2 years when I moved there, I just was almost in this like hermit phase of life. I totally went inward and was just meditating and doing plant medicine ceremonies and really trying to understand like what my body was communicating with me. And during this time, I was having a lot of like past life memory come up, past life trauma. A lot of trauma from my own family lineage would come up and
Wow.
out through me. It was very interesting. And a lot of it would come through like channeled writing. I would look at this notebook that I had written in, and if I didn't know what it was, I would think the person was like schizophrenic writing in it. Like,
Oh, I've got some of those.
yeah, like the handwriting all looks so different from one another, but it was all coming through me. And it was this total release of, I don't know how to say it, like stuff, trauma that was stored in my DNA. So yeah, I was just in this really dark period for about 2 years where my acne was totally crazy, so I didn't want to go out in the world, and I just was forced to go inward. And I know that if I hadn't had this whole experience with my twin, none of that would have happened. Yeah, totally accelerated everything for me
Did
because
you
I was
have past life memories of him, or was it like more your lineage or your own soul trauma?
I haven't had so many past life memories of him come up. It really was more like deep soul recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Specifically with like within the eyes, I would say, like the eye contact is crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, with during that period, it was really a lot of my lineage coming up and past lives that I had lived.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. It was really incredible. I mean, it was so hard while I was going through it, of course.
Uh-huh.
Um, and if you didn't like if you weren't in surrender, you would be like, I'm losing my mind, you know? I was just kind of trusting what was happening and
That's
honestly not really
incredible.
telling anybody because I was like, this is nuts. I can't explain this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And meanwhile, my skin was just getting better and better. Like it was
As you
so
healed.
as I healed,
Uh,
the more I released, the more my body healed. And then at this point in my healing journey, I just felt like, wow, I've totally alchemized like who I am inside, and I'm able to be this person I've always wanted to be. So again,
What
this
were
one's
some tools you used besides the plant medicine? Was it mostly self-love or healing through writing? How did you
yeah,
alchemize? Like, what were some of the tools you used to alchemize that?
yeah. I think plant medicine was huge. Plant medicine was, yeah, I mean, just like really perpetuated me on my journey, and I think opened me to things I wouldn't have possibly been able to open to, specifically ayahuasca.
Wow.
Yeah.
Super
Um,
cool.
yeah, it was amazing, those journeys. They really helped me. But also I think, yeah, writing was super huge. I loved just free writing, channeling, all of those things, but also really kind of tapping into my psychic gifts. And my intuition was really helpful as well. My intuition became really, really strong during that time
Amazing.
because I just stopped kind of doubting myself, and it was beautiful. I think I wish that for everybody.
So beautiful. What do you think, speaking of the German new medicine idea, what do you think the link between the acne and your trauma was? Did you ever correlate those
Yeah.
two things?
Yeah. So with German New Medicine, it's feeling attacked. And I had a lot of, or it's feeling attacked, but it also is feeling like dirtied. So if someone like says something to you that's mean, you can like get acne for that, if that makes sense. And in my household growing up, I've received a lot of verbal abuse. So that was totally in my auric field. And yeah, basically anytime I felt attacked or judged, I would have these acne flare-ups.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
really wild.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating. The Akashic, I do agree with that too, but a lot of the Akashic, the skin, they say that the skin is the barrier between your inner world and your outer world. So if something really traumatic happens in your outer world, you put up a barrier, either rash, eczema, acne, to
Yeah.
protect your inner world from the outside world as
Yes.
well. Yeah, but
Yes.
I do resonate with the attack too. That makes so much sense, or
Yeah.
judged. Yeah.
Yeah. And the barrier too. I mean, I remember that after I had come back from being abroad and seeing my twin for the first time, I had these like huge I had so much acne on my cheek that just
Wow.
literally sprung up overnight. And I know it was my body being like, I need to protect. Like, I can't accept this love. This is too much.
That's so wild. I didn't even remember. So I never had acne. I've never, that's
Mhm.
not been one of my things, but there was a cycle of time between maybe 2011, 2015. Every time I saw my twin, I would get a little rash acne on my cheek. And it was so
Mhm.
frustrating because I was like, what? I see him like once or twice a year.
We look pretty.
Please look pretty. That's, and I was like, that is so wild. And it would put
Yeah.
so much stress in me that I wasn't as confident as I could have been. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild that I just made that
Yeah.
correlation. So
Yeah.
fascinating.
It's so crazy.
Yeah, so by healing your inner works, your acne started to heal.
Yeah. And it's definitely something I still deal with because I mean, I think it's just like my life journey to work on those core wounds.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I'm sure there is like a physical component to it as well. But
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
But yeah, just making that connection and understanding the body in a different way than we're taught to is so expanding.
So that led you on another part of your journey.
Right. Right.
So
I mean
so
that's my career.
yeah. So then that's you went and made a career
Yeah.
out of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
healing art.
The healing arts, absolutely. And I feel really passionate about helping people make those connections on their own, like why is your weight a struggle for you, or why are your, periods really bad? All of these
Mhm.
kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. You went to school, you got some certifications,
Yeah.
degrees, and whatnot for
Yes.
your healing journey, but then what was next in your journey of love?
Yes. So during that whole kind of hermit period, I mean, I won't say I didn't date at all. There were definitely some people who came in and out of my life who I feel like were placed in my path absolutely on purpose to help me heal. Some really kind, amazing men. Just like, oh, I feel like they were able to really see me when I needed to be seen in this like
Wow.
really sweet way. But at some point, I became really clear that I wanted to call in my life partner. Obviously, the twin wasn't coming back in, so I really wanted to find my husband and the person who I'm going to have a family with. So I got really into manifestation. So I started looking at like people who I was friends with and who were in the type of relationship I would want to be in.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah, and just like asking them about like how they met or their relationship or again what I was observing. And I started doing a lot of journaling, and there was also another course I did called Calling in the One that I don't know what magic is in that book, but I feel like that really helped me fine tune my vibration and clear things out in a way that just like totally set me up to align with my life partner.
Wow.
Yeah. So I started dating more consciously, and I had several people kind of come in and come out, but I felt like with each one I was getting closer to what I was looking for. And also I think I was getting really clear on what I was not looking for. So the universe was kind of showing me where I was at via the men coming into my life. Like there was one who ghosted me and I was like, what? We're not doing this again. And I think, yeah, that situation, he ghosted me once, came back into my life and ghosted me again. And I really had to look at myself. Like I wasn't making it about that person, if that makes sense. I was looking at myself saying, what about me is letting that be okay? And I feel like I had to set a really firm boundary with the universe and with myself. Like we're not accepting that type of behavior anymore. Yeah. No. And so the next guy came into my life, and this one got me. I thought I was going to be with him. He was really cute. He was friends with my friends. We had a ton of fun together. But sorry to say, he was kind of a fuckboy. And I had blinders on and was again putting up with behavior I shouldn't have. And we continued to date. And I went away for Christmas, and I found out that he had been sleeping with other people while I was away
Wow.
for 2 weeks. At Christmas.
Oh,
Shouldn't you be with your family? So again, I had to set this really firm boundary. I'm not accepting this behavior anymore. No more of this. But I also wasn't going to let it stop me. I just put myself right back out there for dating.
wow.
And I got on the apps. I think it was like a Wednesday, started swiping. And on Friday, I went out on a date with the person who would be my husband. Yeah.
Chills.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything was really fated and happened exactly how it needed to. But even with that relationship, it totally took me by surprise. I didn't think too much of it at first. I mean, I knew he was like handsome and we had fun together, but in all transparency, he drank a little too much on our first date. And it was like, I don't know about this. So we'll see. I'll give him one more chance, but I'm not doing anything about it. If he wants to see me, he will make it happen. And obviously he did, and never seen him drink again since
Wow.
then. But he said he was nervous. Yeah, we have just had such an amazing time together since. And the soul recognition wasn't immediate with him. But about, I don't know, 6 months into us dating, I kind of realized like, wow, this is my husband. This is the person I'm going to have my children with.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah, it was just way more subtle than the twin, my husband is absolutely a soulmate, and it just feels totally different. It feels like family. It feels a hug. It feels
Yeah.
sweet, and grounded in a way that where the twin relationship felt so fiery and intense and like too hot, almost like it could burn.
Mhm.
could burn
Mm-hmm.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, too much energy for what I'm looking for in this life. So, yeah, and I think no less spiritual, if that makes sense. Like,
It makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I mean, I think that the whole twin flame journey that I had really awakened me to, like we've talked about so much, and I know all of your work is about the oneness, right? Like everything is that. And so why would a soulmate relationship be any different than that too?
I love that. And I think that's
Yeah.
really helpful for people because people get stuck on that twin because it is so fiery. It is so intense. It feels like God. But yeah, to have that grounded soulmate energy is just as magical and beautiful. And the one's not higher, quote unquote, than the other. So I love that perception. How were you able, with this twin flame energy, open your heart to your husband? Was it a back and forth challenge, or were you just so ready for your family that you opened your heart?
I think definitely back and forth, honestly. And I think that's where like you and I working together has been really helpful to me. We've talked about how, we're like multi-dimensional beings and it's totally okay to feel love for two people.
Uh-huh.
I think I beat myself up for feeling love for my twin, but that doesn't mean I don't have love for my partner. It both can be true. And I won't pretend to say it's like not complicated, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really happy with the relationship I'm in. And I think it's really about like what you're looking for in this lifetime?
Yeah. I love that. And I know we've talked about limerence a lot too,
Mm-hmm.
with this, because one of the aspects that, if you talk to psychologists or whatnot, they'll say, oh, this is just limerence, so you're putting this relationship on a pedestal. But that can also happen with the twins. So I know with us, we've worked through that a lot where, things might get a little dicey with the husband. Things might, because relationships are challenging, marriages are challenging, and there's always going to be things to work through and to realize and, work with this other being. So it might be easy at times to go and put this twin flame, or if you're in a twin flame activation or some kind of intense relationship in the past, on a pedestal that, oh, that's the ideal relationship, and wanting to leave the current one that's actually grounded in reality and grounded in a family to put. And so for those of you that don't know what limerence is basically when you're a child and you have some trauma and it's pretty intense, a lot of us, especially if you're creative or you're psychic or you're really sensitive, what we do is we create an alternate reality. We create a fantasy world of, it could be like, oh, my real parents are kings and queens, and one day they're going to come save me, or my real dad's this rock star. My mom just didn't tell me. And we create this world of fantasy land that at some point when you're a child, it's a self-preservation mechanism. And it saves us from really facing what's actually happening. So it's really beneficial for children at times. But then when we grow up, we bring this fantasy world or this limerent state, putting things in an exalted position. And that can happen with the twin flame stuff. I did, and I got really hit with reality when we started our relationship because I thought he was completely enlightened in one way. And then when we got smacked together, I was like, you're really human. A lot of flaws. And same, he had the same perception of me, and the humans meeting humans was really challenging because we thought the other person was supposed to behave a certain way. And so then when we come out, and you're going to your relationships, like sometimes there's this default of, but this would have been so much better. So to work through, so those of you who deal with that limerent state, yeah, you can have it with the twin, but also coming back to reality. Like, what was the actual reality with this person? And how
Yes.
were we? And then, if you decide you want a soulmate thing, which I highly recommend, if you're open to it and you want children and you want that to lean in, like, okay, what is the reality of this? Knowing it's an and, it's not an or, it's an and. This can be my twin flame, but I'm also limerent. Like when I realized the term limerence, I'm like, I've been limerent my whole life. In high school, I put these guys, like I always had big crushes, and yeah, so I understand that dynamic so well, but then it's like really understanding the reality of what's right in front of you. And so, with that being said, how were you able to untangle the limerent energy and then ground into what the twin flame journey was teaching you?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was so healing to learn even that term from you because I was able to kind of remove these rose-colored glasses that I had on for so long. You know, when something's so intense and beautiful and like sexy and all the things, it's really easy when you're far away from it to make it something it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think like it was all of those things, but also he had me too, these really real human wounds that would make it not possible to be together in this lifetime
Yeah.
in terms
Yeah.
of a long-term, healthy, committed, stable relationship. So yeah, that was really healing. And it took a lot of unwinding and being really real with myself and yeah, grounding into reality
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
I love that. And so with the husband, does he have any clue of this other energy that you're dealing with?
They've met actually.
Wow. Wow.
But no, he doesn't know. He doesn't need to know.
No, I think it's a not need to
Yeah.
know because it does cause
Yeah.
so much confusion. And
Yeah. I
yeah,
think it's like I wouldn't want to make him feel any less good about him and I. And it's just, yeah, I mean, while it is a part of my story and a part of my reality, it doesn't need to become part of our relationship.
yeah.
Yeah.
And for you, one thing I have been really pounding into people, if I could go back in my 30s, I would find my husband because it's everyone has their own journey and you can be alone forever and that's totally fine. But if I could go back, I would be like, you know what? Your life would be so much easier if you had a grounded masculine energy and you didn't have to survive and be all parties to everyone at all times to open your heart to a beautiful soulmate and get focused. And I love the focus work that you did with the to be magnetic and the calling in the one, making the list to the universe, this is what I want, and I'm not going to settle for anything less, and really working through. So doing that work, obviously that's a lot of manifestation stuff, but there must have been some shadows you had to work through of your self-worth and your value and
Mhm.
noticing when guys were reflecting the things that you didn't want. How did
Mhm.
you let go of that chaser dynamic of chasing something that you didn't want and really leaning into a beautiful soulmate? Was there something you did, somehow you worked through that energy?
I think I almost projected into the future, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Uh-huh.
I just knew that my husband wouldn't treat me in those ways. I knew
Mm-hmm.
that the version of myself that was this wife energy and mother energy that I wanted to be wouldn't accept being treated in those ways. And I feel like that really helped.
I
You know,
love that.
like
Mm-hmm.
I knew that in this life I always have been meant to be a mother and have a family. And yeah, I just knew that those people were not in alignment.
Oh, that's so
Um,
great.
and it's not easy, you know, it's not easy to hold those boundaries and have that trust,
Mm-hmm.
but I somehow found it within myself because I
Yeah,
just knew that that timeline that I was looking for or trying to create was there.
I love that. Amazing. And you are going to have a family.
Any day now.
Any day now. So I've loved watching your journey with this and the
Thanks,
pregnancy and
Thank,
bringing to fruition all the magic that
thank
you've
you.
been dreaming of. It's just so profound and
Thank
beautiful.
you.
And one other thing, you do see him now and again, the twin. How do you
Yes.
navigate that energy when you do have to go to some event that he's there?
Yeah, it's so strange, honestly. I feel really heightened in my body and it's really intense. Like I will get like shakes sometimes and yeah, just feel like very ungrounded.
Hmm.
I did tell my best, like not the mutual friend that we have, but my one of my other good girlfriends, the reality of the relationship between him and I. And I think that felt really healing and grounding to tell someone who would understand and be non-judgmental, just like, hey, this is what I experience like when I see this person. But yeah, it's really intense and it is I feel like he comes in at moments of my life where I need an upgrade. Um
Yeah.
and I'm sure for him too. Like the last time you and I spoken about this, but the last time him and I were at an event together was a wedding of our two best friends. And after, you know, being at multiple events, the same events together for the whole weekend, I was laying in bed and I felt this huge activation of my sacral and root chakras that I had not felt before. And this really bright white light energy. And it absolutely felt like a clearing happened. Mind you, I'm like laying in bed next to my husband and I'm like, what the fuck is this? um yeah, I we had talked about it, you and I, after, and I totally believe that that clearing of my sacral chakra from encountering my twin helped me get pregnant really, really easily, which is amazing. So, yeah, I mean, it's really intense. I enjoy seeing him. I like think of him fondly at this time. And again, it's like this really heightened experience, but it's not for the faint of heart, I would say.
No, it's not. And it's that dancing to activate, dance how to integrate. The integration can be challenging. And
Yeah.
especially if you're living with someone and trying to navigate the intense emotions that come with it. But
Mhm.
I love your dedication to it and really dedication to your family and the most beautiful life you can create. So I love that.
Thank
And
you.
as per our last episode, when Carrie asked me what would I tell my self that was going through the twin flame journey, instead of like, what would you tell someone going through this? What would you tell your younger self if you could go?
Yeah. I think just to really surrender and let go and let God. I think yeah, I got really attached to wanting to try to control what the relationship was and could be. And I think when you encounter that level of love, you think, how could I not be with this person? How could that not be my journey? But in retrospect, it all makes sense. And I think I would also recommend to not make it about the other person, because I really believe the more I learn about the twin flame dynamic, yes, it's about that person, but it's really happening for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that encounter, that relationship totally put me on my path. It blew me open spiritually, and my life is forever changed as a result. So it's not about him.
Yeah.
you know?
I love that. It's funny that sparked within me a remembrance of, when I was trying to figure out what this twin flame energy was, there was one theory I had at one point where, what if that was my higher self coming in through a being that is all my dreams wrapped up in one gorgeous man who sings the most gorgeous songs. And then my higher self went in to just fully activate me, because what else is going to move me forward than the most profound, sexy love? And for me, I am a lover, and that carrot and that rose of love is like, oh, yep, I'm going to sense. Yep, I'm going to do the work. And that was one of my theories of just, and clearly, if we, it's one soul, two bodies,
Mhm.
it is your higher self coming through and just fully activating you. It's like, it's go time, babe. Let's go. And it comes wrapped up in all you ever dreamed of. But then when you face it, it's sometimes can be a nightmare, because that nightmare unleashes the shadows in order to ascend. So
Yes.
I love that it is about you and whatever they're mirroring. And the twin flame is an energy, and it comes through to activate you when needed. So I love
Yep.
that so much. And I love this conversation. Thank
Yeah.
you for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I wish you well on your journey of babyhood,
Thank you so
motherhood.
much.
You're
Thank
welcome. Thank you for watching Beyond the Veil. Please like, subscribe, and share so we can grow our channel. If you have a story you would like to share, please email nandipresents@gmail.com. If you're interested in classes or personal sessions, please visit nandi.co, Nandi.co, and have a magical day.